Thank you for being here this evening. It's nice to celebrate the GSB in New York City, even amidst the very un-California-like weather. I started in Hawaii yesterday and stopped in California last night before coming here, and this weather wants me to go back to Hawaii. I'm Gene Sykes. I am the chair of the GSB Advisory Council, and so I have the good fortune of starting tonight's events. This will not take very long. We're here primarily to honor Jeff Bewkes, who we're going to hear from later on. But I wanted to take a few minutes while he's here for me to say a few words about Bob Joss, the Dean of the GSB, who I think many of you know and many of you have had a chance to meet during his 2 terms as GSB Dean. I've had the good fortune of working closely with Bob for the past several years on the Advisory Council, and it's going to be a very, very difficult thing to fill Bob's shoes. I also have the responsibility of being on the search committee to find his replacement, and I've been on that committee now for about 4 months. We've had countless meetings and lots of discussion with faculty members and other people who have an interest in the GSB, and I appreciate now how difficult a job Bob actually has. But I'm sure we'll come up with someone who can do the job and attempt to do what Bob has done marvelously well. I would say we should pause and reflect on how many accomplishments Bob has achieved during his 2 terms, his nearly 10 years as Dean of the GSB. Bob's fond of saying that the 3 C's are things that he is especially focused on: the new curriculum, the new campus, and the collaboration with the other parts of Stanford that are a big part of the multidisciplinary effort that the GSB leads for all of Stanford University. But Bob has also accomplished a number of other things. During Bob's 2 terms, he started, and the GSB has caused to flourish, the Centers for Leadership Development, the Center for Social Innovation, and the Center for Global Business and the Economy. In fact, I remember 5 years ago being on the Advisory Council and thinking the GSB is behind the rest of the world in focusing on globalization. That has clearly changed, and Bob deserves great credit for that. Bob has also presided over an expansion of the faculty, which is really quite remarkable. The faculty size at the GSB today is 40% larger than it was when Bob became dean 10 years ago. And for a school as unusual and distinctive as Stanford, by virtue of its size and its approach to teaching business education, that's a very, very big achievement. Bob's leadership in the campaign for the school has generated nearly $600 million, and Bob was instrumental in securing the $105 million gift from Phil Knight. And as a member of the search committee for Bob's successor, I've been able to witness the high repute that both Bob holds and the school holds by virtue of his leadership. As somebody who spoke to the search committee said yesterday, the GSB is in a position to lap the competition. And I think we should all have a toast and salute Bob's leadership, because it's really due to him that we're in that position today. So thank you very much, Bob.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure as Dean of the Graduate School of Business to join Gene Sykes in welcoming you to this wonderful event. You know, 7 years ago, we started having this Excellence in Leadership dinner in New York, where we recognized and honored one of our GSB alums. And it's become something that's a real favorite, something I know as Dean I look forward to every year, and it's a great opportunity to get our terrific Stanford GSB community in New York together. So it's a real pleasure. I have to say that thank you for coming. Many of you have come from different parts of the country, come to support our honoree. Great turnout from members of his class. I want to thank you as well for your ongoing engagement and support of the school. It's just it's a wonderful thing. I'll tell you, as dean, there are a lot of great things about my job, but the best of all is just meeting alumni all over the world and this tremendous enthusiasm that Stanford alums have for the school. You know, it's interesting, we're just talking at our table, and many of us know people from other schools as well as our own school. And it's a remarkable thing, you know, often in conversation I'll start, well, where did you go to school? Yeah, I went to business school. And they'll say, well, tell me about it. Oh, well, my school was good. It was great. It was good for me. But I never encountered the Stanford people without, it was great. It was the best thing in my life. You know, I wish I could go back. I don't know. I think it's a noticeable difference, and it's just really a great thrill for somebody in my role as dean to connect with people across more than 50 years of classes and see the sort of impact that our school had on their lives. And in turn, the kind of impact their lives are having on the lives of others and organizations that are important to society. It is really a very, very fulfilling and rewarding part of the job. Jean was nice enough to tell you what's going on at the school, so I don't need to say much more other than that it's a very exciting time. It's a great time at Stanford. The university's engaged in a very unique adventure in higher education, really pushing across all 7 schools, seeking solutions to really tough and important social challenges, and developing leaders. You know, that's what we think we're all about, seeking solutions through the tremendous idea creation that we have amongst our faculty, and then with those ideas, preparing tomorrow's leadership for people that can think for themselves, think critically, think in an expansive, socially oriented way. It's nice to be a part of such an institution, and it's nice to gather tonight in the name of Stanford. I would like to just ask if we could welcome for a moment, and whether you can see them, I don't know, but there are members of the incoming class or the admitted class of 2011, if they could all stand. So stand and be recognized. Great. Well, it's great to have you here. I know saying the class of 2011 sounds really difficult for a lot of people in this room. But these are amazing young people. We welcome them as part of this special community. And I think they'll begin to understand what we're about throughout the course of this evening. As I said, in 2003, we established this award. We wanted to recognize people in our community for their excellence in leadership, both in their organizations and in their greater communities. This is the 7th time we've done it. We've had a spectacular list of people to choose from and to honor. And to do the honors tonight of introducing tonight's award honoree, I thought I'd call on last year's honoree. She was our 2008 Excellence in Leadership Award recipient. She came to Stanford from Oxford University, where she majored in philosophy, politics, and economics. We can use her today. She came, perhaps improbably, to the Stanford Graduate School of Business. She's a wonderful member of the Stanford GSB family. She is the founder, the managing partner, and the chief investment officer of her firm, New Amsterdam Partners. She has an incredible list of volunteer and community activities. I can't possibly list them all. I just want to mention a couple of those that are very important to me and to us. She's the chair of something called the Clayman Institute for Gender Research at Stanford. That's pretty special to her and to us. And she's a member of our GSB Advisory Council. So please welcome to the podium to do the introductory honors tonight, Michelle Clayman. Michelle.
Thank you, Bob. My life flashed before my eyes. I thought this was a year ago. So I'm sandwiched between 2 great men, Bob and Jeff. And of course, my role is to adhere to the 3 B's of being in this situation. So that's be brief, be funny, and be seated. So tonight is to honor Jeff. Before we do that, there's someone else for whom tonight is a very special occasion, and that is our own Sharon Marine, whose birthday it is. And in honor of that, we have a special presentation for her, and I spared no expense. It's your own plastic version of the Statue of Liberty. Sharon, would you come up? So we're here to honor Jeff, who has had an amazing career, and I think we can all learn from it, because he's a man who has been at Citicorp, and then he taught us that sometimes to move ahead, you actually have to move sideways, and he was very brave in then moving to HBO. And we have Jeff to thank for Band of Brothers, Sopranos, and he was very popular, I understand, with the Sex and the City ladies. He's also been very popular with the Stanford Business School. He's a member of the Advisory Council, on again for his second term. He was very active in his 20th and his 25th reunion. He has hosted our Sloan Fellows here in New York when they have come to visit. He often makes himself available for the Challenge for Charity and is a highly bid on item. Yeah, you learn how to be objectified when you stand up for charity. He has just been a terrific friend of the school, so thank you, Jeff, and please come on up.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Oh! Thank you so much. You are very kind. Thank you. Really, thank you very much. So, thanks a lot. Michelle, you're a hard act to follow as an honoree. You know, it's hard to be an honoree. And this is an odd moment in history to be with people who will even admit to being MBAs. You know, given the global economy in the last year, having a gathering like this, some of the most exalted business leaders of our generation, could have turned out to something more akin to the Nuremberg trials. You know, in fact, the only thing we really have going for us at this moment is that we're not Harvard MBA. Which is not to say that I'm not very grateful for this high honor. I really am. I'm very honored. I would like to thank the members of the class of '77. So many of them are here tonight. They're all over here. Thank you for not boycotting or protesting this procedure. So I asked Bob Joss what to talk about tonight, and he said, people always like to hear, you know, how you got where you are, what you learned along the way. And I thought, well, that's perfect. It's just like Hollywood, where most conversations end with a statement, enough about me. Let's talk about what you think. What do you think about me? But I did not want to fall into the stereotype of a self-involved media mogul who's always talking about himself. And it's not out of modesty, it's just that a lot of those guys are getting fired. So Bob and I agreed that the current economic crisis calls for a treatise on leadership. He teaches it at the school. And let's face it, people have grown wary of MBAs. Are they good or are they bad? Are they part of the problem or are they part of the solution? And if they're not part of the solution, exactly how much will it cost to pay them to go away? Well, we all know in this room that all you need to fix the world economic situation is an MBA. Anybody here could do it. So before I outline my plans for the global architectural system, I thought I should start with some things that I know something actually about. Well, when I came out of Stanford, I looked at my brilliant classmates that were going into Wall Street high finance, Silicon Valley advanced engineering, and I said to myself, Jeff, go into an industry where nobody can add. So I went in the TV business. This was in the 80s. I think we all know that's when all the broadcast networks were going through violent change, things changing very fast. The moguls in charge of these companies were used to giving orders without much discussion or challenge. I think the layman's term for this is screaming. And since they didn't want to hear any ideas from anybody, they couldn't evolve, and so when the meteors came and hit their universe, they became extinct. Well, I was lucky. I landed at HBO, and HBO was cable before cable was cool. We knew that we didn't know anything. So we tried everything, and we listened to everybody. In other words, we basically argued day and night, and we kept whatever worked. In the post-apocalyptic media world, we were the cockroaches. That's the HBO table right out there, table 12. We did, however, have a mission. TV worth paying for. You know, it's not TV, it's HBO. Every other network was in the business of selling an audience to an advertiser. We were in the business of selling a program channel to you, the audience. And it made all the difference. It have changed the shape of the programming, the marketing, the distribution system. So things went so well at HBO that I was then assigned a much bigger job at Time Warner, for which I was largely unqualified. This phenomena is known, of course, as the Peter Principle, first discovered at the Stanford Business School in an OB course by Peter Kreisky, class of '77. You will be hearing from Peter in a few minutes, and knowing him as I do, he thinks that I am just the warm-up act for his remark. Time Inc., Time Warner, as the name suggests, came from a series of mergers, or begats. Time Inc. begat HBO, that merged with Warner Brothers, that begat Time Warner, which then merged with AOL to begat AOL Time Warner, and then degat to just Time Warner. I know we had some missteps along the way. In media, a misstep is industry jargon for falling off a cliff into a smoking crater. We were just like Cisco, growing by acquisitions, except our deals really sucked. And we never integrated them into the rest of the company. But the good part, the soul of our company was, you know, we could innovate. So, Time was the first magazine. Warner Brothers made the first talking picture. CNN was the first 24-hour news network. Did I mention that HBO invented pay TV? AOL was the first big online service and social network. This is all good because today I spend, and many of us at Time Warner do, most of our day advocating a new TV world where we want to put all the television channels on your dial out on the internet for free. If you have it in your home, you've paid for it, and we'd like you to get it on broadband, on any device, and on demand, the way HBO is right now. So again, HBO blazing the way. So all this is to say that in 30 years since I left Stanford, media changed a lot. And so to Bob's question, did I learn anything? Well, yes, I did. Two things. Only two. One, EQ equals IQ. And I don't mean they're the same thing. I mean they're equally important. Most of the train wrecks that I've seen, and I think you've seen, whether in the media business or in general business, they come from a shortage of EQ, not IQ. There was plenty of analysis extolling the genius of the AOL Time Warner merger and how AOL's internet business was going to fix the old Time Warner media business, And there was an impressive edifice of sophisticated quantitative modeling, undergirding the global financial system just before it crashed. So what was lacking was common sense, and with hindsight, we can now see the fault lines running under the global finance system, under the AOL-Time Warner merger, so you could make a case that these were analytic failures. But why did we not see them at the time? Because after all, if you assigned any first-year class at Stanford a case on a hypothetical economy where 40% of the corporate profits came out of earnings in the financial sector, the class would say, well, that can't last. If you gave them a case on a merger of two huge companies, more than 100 billion market caps each, where one of them acquired the other with stock valued at 100 times earnings multiple, the class would say, is this a trick question? But the fact that these things did happen in the real world, in the grown-up world, says something about the way people behave in groups. And I'm not saying that mushy, wait a minute, I've skipped a page, excuse me a second. Well, what the heck. Anyway, what I remember back at Stanford, we used to debate these issues in OB, remember this? There was, how important are the soft skills? And some of the very muscular black belt quant jocks would say, you know, maybe this is a waste of time. I'm just saying, not that mushy is better than tough and smart, but in the pressure of the business culture we all live with, all that pressure to be firm and decisive, sometimes saying, I don't know, let's talk through this again, is being tough and smart. And that's why I appreciate Stanford's base approach. We all are products of that, the mix of research-based teaching with the cases, the very good mix between competition and cooperation. And despite the intimacy of the small, relatively small size of Stanford's community, there's a rich diversity of students from many countries, from many disciplines, coming to learn and compare new ways to solve those age-old human needs of food, shelter, health, energy, communication, and education. And as the dean, Bob Joss, said a minute ago, there are 20 or 30 admitted, and some, believe it or not, undecided new Stanford MBAs with us tonight. And I know I just said, you know, don't rush into anything like the time we're in a merger and use EQ along with IQ. But as you admitted and qualified Stanford students, make your decision. Just ask yourself, do you want to be sad or do you want to be happy? So use your head and listen to your gut. Stay with us. So let me finish with a few heartfelt words about the person who has laid the tracks for Stanford Business School into the next century. Gene spoke eloquently, basically covered the whole thing earlier, but remember the old truism. Everything may have been said, but not everyone has said it. Bob Joss is, of course, the de facto architect of Stanford's new campus, and as a way of doing that, he updated, overhauled the curriculum to make it relevant, to make previous disciplines that were separate talk together and interact. He has been a visionary and very inspiring, and doing both of those things to be a steward of the excellence and the character of the school that we all cherish. So he will take his place as one of the great deans of Stanford Business School. Please join me in recognizing Bob's year. You know, Bob, let me thank you in advance for any kind words you may choose to say about me later tonight. And if they aren't kind words, please remember some of the nice things that I said about you. So before we hear from Bob, let me introduce you to my friend, Peter Kreisky, and the namesake of the principle that governs management promotions, Am I supposed to introduce you, Peter, or are you supposed to storm the stage? Here he comes, Peter Kreisky.
So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight it's my honor and role to toast Jeff on behalf of the GSB class of 77. Can I hear you? And boy, are we proud of him. Jeff is one of the best jobs in the world. A mix of glamour, intrigue, drama, and violence. And that's just breakfast in the Bewkes household. But his career could have turned out very differently, with implications for all of us. It could have been the winery, his first job out of business school. It could have been Citibank, where he was told he was on a short track to run the bank, but decided an upstart pay TV service was a better bet. But who knows how that story would have ended if it had stayed with the bank. It could have been investment banking, but a chance encounter with that which a dog had deposited in his path en route to an interview in a claustrophobic basement. What might today be described as a canine-induced wardrobe malfunction totally blew his chances of running Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers. And as we all know now, didn't he come out smelling of roses from that one? Ladies and gentlemen, by any measure, the group that assembled in Palo Alto in the autumn of 1975 was a motley crew. Remember that we had attended college during the turbulence of the late 60s and early 70s, and so next to the consultants and bankers and brand managers were Vietnam vets, were bartenders, were filmmakers, carpenters, musicians, and even a poet, a great poet, it turns out. I encountered Jeff on our first day at Stanford, and we became fast friends. Spry, suave, and sophisticated. That's the nice part. He distinguished himself at the heart of the class, the intellectual heart of the class. He could be guaranteed to argue with every single professor, pushing every one of their buttons, and get away with it because he was so charming. And he still, today, maintains that path. His extraordinary knowledge of the world, intense curiosity, rapier wit, genuine caring about people and what is important to each of them, has created a strong kinship with his classmates. Besides, it was always fun hanging out with Jeff, and as you'll see, this is Jeff on his 25th birthday in Palo Alto when he was in good spirits. Jeff has done more than any other individual to transform the vast wasteland of television described by Newt Minow in 1961. Jeff was just turning 9 at the time, and I'm sure that Minow's controversial remarks were debated around the Bewkes family table. Just how much of an impression did that make on the prepubescent Bewkes? Remember, this was before girls. I believe it must have stuck because 40 years on, Jeff rendered redundant the hidebound, Nielsen-enslaved culture that had fostered this wasteland of lowest common denominator, ratings-driven programming. Jeff's vision and leadership at HBO was groundbreaking and I would say game-changing because the bold and creative programming that he inspired matched a previously unsatisfied audience desire for intelligent drama, provocative documentaries, and uninhibited comedy. Jeff, oops. Oh, well. Jeff, oh, here we go. You must have this page. There you go. Jeff connected sound insight to the economics of subscription television and the importance of market leadership with the unshackling of creative geniuses like David Milch and Alan Ball and David Chase. He took big risks and they paid off. And we're all the beneficiaries. But what's more important is that HBO's phenomenal success inspired others in the industry and has driven a sea change in the intelligence and sophistication of senior entertainment executives. And who's the new breed of media executives modeled upon? It's our own Jeff. Everybody wants their own Jeff Bewkes. Or to paraphrase Gilbert and Sullivan, he is the very model of a modern media general. Today he's reshaping Time Warner, replacing the undervalued void at the center of the old conglomerate with a new, beating heart. And in short, the best is yet to come. So Dean Joss, ladies and gentlemen, as a class, we're very proud of Jeff and truly appreciative of the honor bestowed upon him tonight. Jeff, dear friend, we're particularly proud of your remarkable achievements, not least because you finally shed a bright light on our class and made us proud and put us, you have given us a new beating heart. So now I'd like to call upon the motley crew of 75, otherwise known as the GSB class of 77, to please stand up, raise your glasses. You will there? Class of 77, here's to Jeff, an outstanding classmate, a visionary, a leader, a renegade, a great friend, and an all-around good guy. Here's to you, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Peter. Very well done. Thank you, class of 77, for making this a special evening. But most of all, thank you, Jeff, for all you've achieved, all you've done, but all you've been, and allowing us to honor you and to be such a wonderful role model for our students today and our students to come. I'd like to call Jeff up and actually present him the Excellence in Leadership Award. Please join me again in thanking Jeff and congratulating. Thank you. There's a base that has a description on it. Thank you. That's great. Have a great evening. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, class of 77. Thanks, everybody, for coming. This is my last chance to officiate at a New York Excellence in Leadership dinner. Let me just again say I'll be back as a guest. And please keep engaged, stay connected with each other and with the school. I know you well. It's a wonderful institution. We're all proud and fortunate to have been a part of it. And we all bear a small measure of responsibility to keep it going and keep it great. And thanks to everybody in this room, it will be. It's an exceptional place and only getting better. Thanks again for coming.